Yeah. I'm approaching a real estate agent who's trying to sell a unit in Randwick. And obviously, I'm interested, but I thought, okay, don't show that you're too interested. So don't show your whole hand. But I knew what my
Yes.
limit was. I knew where I could go up to. So I went in for the inspection. I paid for the strata report. I paid for the building and pest inspection. I got the reports back. So by that stage, 2 or 3 days had gone by, and I make an offer in writing. So I sent an email to the real estate agent who's selling it, and I tell them, okay, well, my partner and I are interested in buying this property, and this is the offer we'd like to make. I'm waiting because you know the rules. You're not supposed to call straight away. You're supposed to give them a little bit of time to think about it. So I waited till the next morning, the very next morning, and I rang the real estate agent up. And the
Right.
real estate agent said, and the real estate agent said, uh, we sent your offer to the owner, and we also rang the other people that were interested in buying the property, and they've offered 5,000 more than what you've offered. So they've bought the place. It's off the market now. I said, no, no, hold on.
Oh,
I can go. I can go further up. Let me offer 10. And they said, no, no, we're not interested in horse trading. What I found out later is that this is quite common in the real estate industry. If you make an offer on a
yeah.
property, then the real estate agent will call anybody who's ever been at the inspection and say, look, we already have a written offer at this value. If you don't want to miss out, make a higher bid. And so quite often the first bidder is not the winner.
Oh,
The first bidder is the one that's used as the benchmark to get other people to either commit or walk away. And I learned that the hard way. We missed out. The second property that I that
you missed out.
the second property that I found within a couple of streets was also in Randwick, and it still had exactly the same things we were looking for, which was a two-bedroom unit that faced north or northeast, and it still ticked all the boxes. But this time, I learned something from my mistake. Instead of making an
Right.
offer, Instead of making an offer, I paid for the inspections, I paid for the strata report, made sure everything was ticking the boxes as far as knowing that if I committed to it, I wouldn't need to run away later. But my offer was a little bit higher than what I thought the place would fetch. And I did the opposite. I went to the real estate agent and I said,
Ah,
have you, have you had any interest or have you had any offers on this unit already? And they disclosed that they had an offer of 400,000. So I thought to myself, okay, I know what's going to happen next. I'm going to make an offer. They're going to use my offer to shop around. So I made an offer of 410,500. Why 500 more? Because
100.
then the real estate agent could shop around and say, we've had an offer over 410. So if you're going to beat it, it has to be over, not 410, but over a mark that's over the 410. So I know that if somebody was going to bid 450, 460, I'm not interested anyway. But if they're going
That's
to bid
right.
411, they wouldn't get to 411. They'd have to beat me by at least 10,000 or 20,000. So I figured, okay, so now I'm making an offer. It's a fair value considering what calculations I made on really the preliminary learning expedition of what it is to buy property. But I knew that the strata was good, that the payments going in to the strata, which is where the money is shared in a block of units to make sure that
Right.
there's insurance, to make sure that
Upkeep.
the building is upkept, to make sure that there's enough money to paint the roof if it needs to be repainted or resealed for a water seal. Very important if you're going to have a block of units and you only own one of them. So I made the offer,
Yeah.
and that $500 extra, maybe that was the kicker. Maybe that was the reason I ended up buying that. But that came out okay for me. And being in Randwick, I estimated it's going to grow quite quickly, or at the very least,
Yes.
grow. So I lived in it. It was the unit that I bought not just as a pure investment, but a property to live in. Now, when we first moved in, right in front of the northern balcony was this massive tree. When I say massive, think of it this way. If you were to line up three cars back to back, front to tail, the shade of the tree was as big as three cars back to back. So it was a very
Gosh.
significant tree. And think of where Randwick is on the map compared to the beautiful view of the city outline with the
Mm.
Centre Point Tower in the
Mm.
middle of Sydney. If
Yes.
by magic the tree would disappear, we would have a
Yes.
skyline view from our balcony to Sydney Harbour. Not harbour, but at least Centre Point Tower and the city
A
skyline.
good view.
And
Yes.
usually the views increase the value of a property. Anyway, so I think I stayed there about 5 or 6 years. And one night there was a massive thunderstorm with a lightning bolt that happened to split the tree, actually hit that tree smack bang in the middle. And that tree that was blocking our view evaporated. Force of nature, act of God. But so here's the funny part. I went to the local real estate agents that were the experts in selling in Randwick and got three of them to come in and give me a quote on how much my property is worth. And every
Right.
single one to a T valued it between 800 and 900,000. Now
Awesome.
we bought this for 410 and 500. So I'm
Yes.
thinking, wow, I've just doubled my money. And this is how I learned not to read the papers. Why? Because
Okay.
this is a beautiful view apartment. It has great views in summer. If we did inspections during summertime, people would see the city view. They'd see the beautiful sun-filled lounge room facing north, remember, and the bedrooms
Yes.
facing east. So all the aspects meant that in summertime, you're going to get the best views. So of course I organised the little paint jobs, the walls to be repainted, and the old carpet to be removed, just to do some new flooring on there. Um, One of the lucky bits, and I say lucky with a bit of jest, because sometimes you pick a job not for what you can earn, but for what you can learn. And I think I read that in one of the property books actually. But if you were to pick
Yes.
a job for what you can learn instead of what you can earn, at that stage, when I was an investor of one property, I didn't need to know much
Yes.
about how to invest in property. I needed to learn how to renovate properties. So I found a job with a big Australian retailer. I'm not going to drop brand names, but Tony, this is going to seem like a bit of clickbait where you go like, just click on my profile on LinkedIn and check out my resume. No, I'm not doing it as clickbait. But I just didn't want to drop in different names of different companies I worked with. But let's say it's a big Australian retailer that retailed electrical goods and furniture. So if you were to buy a new oven, a new fridge, new appliances,
That's where you'd go.
or even build a new kitchen, that's where you would go. So
Ah.
I found a property. Sorry. So I found a job that could teach me how to renovate because they knew how to measure and refit a new kitchen and a new bathroom.
And those
And
are the skills that you wanted to develop so that you could renovate in a professional manner. Ah, well, brilliance.
so the just from an appliances point of view, I could learn a little bit by going shopping and not spending my own money, but just seeing what's out there and finding out about the different strategies. So I did a very, very simple thing. And really, it's just a cosmetic makeover. But the little paint job and just pulling out the old carpet, putting in new vinyl floorboards that looked like real timber but weren't and were waterproof, just made the place so much more habitable, open. Carpet can really make a home luxurious
Yes.
if you're paying for expensive carpet. But if it had the original
Otherwise.
condition carpet, then you're not really adding value. So the first thing I did was I ripped up the carpet and cut it up into 100 pieces so it could fit into my bin once a week. And that way I could just throw it out with my normal rubbish. But apart from my back work, apart from actually putting in the hard yards, the sweat equity into the work,
Yes. Yes.
I did have great luck with measuring, drawing up plans, working out what size each room was, and then cutting the pieces to fit. So I did learn a lot just from that one little renovation on what to do. Where I got burnt, and this is something that I'll always remember.
Yes.
My family, my friends, the newspapers, all the media was saying, as long as you buy in Sydney, you could never lose money. As long as you buy in the eastern suburbs, you can never lose money. As long as you, etc., etc. You know the story, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yes.
That's not true. So I put the property up for auction. for a January auction. It was a gorgeous day. I think we had about 10 to 15 people show up for the auction, and we sold it through the auction campaign for under 500,000. How? Why? How did that happen?
Yeah,
Well,
tell us, Amir.
so four things came together that I couldn't have predicted. The first one was that the government was about to change. So we had federal elections, meaning all of Australia was about to find out if they're going to have the same tax incentives for property next year as they were happy with last year.
I
And
see.
the newspapers were saying that it's likely that it's no longer going to be the same government, but will be a change of government. And this was kind of within 3 or 4 weeks of the end of the auction. So the people that were hesitating didn't show up for the
Yes.
auction, which meant the ones that did show up were just the ones that were looking for a good price, a bargain. Never sell when you have to sell. At that stage, I already made a few commitments, and I knew I had to sell within a week anyway. So, long story short, instead of hitting the absolute potential of 800,000 for the property,
Which it
I
definitely had, didn't it?
which we had three different prices for, thinking that, this is the estimate and we could hit that, etc. We took the wrong time to auction. And seeing 15 people there, I thought, okay, it wasn't that the real estate agent didn't advertise enough, because obviously there were people there, but just was the wrong time to sell. Now, if I would have waited another 2 years when the government was stable and there wasn't the impending change, the market was different. And it's not that property demand or property supply changed. It was only that people were more certain. It was only that it was just a good time to sell or a bad time to sell. Anyway, lesson number one, but I bought and I made a profit when I sold. So if I was to think of it just in numerical terms, I'd think, you know what, just such a small increase in value over so many years, I could have just kept my money in shares. I could have invested in something different. But think of it this way. I was living in the property. So if I was to add my rent and rent and rent and rent and think of that as money that disappeared, and then I compared what my interest rate was for the home loan again and again and again, and then I took the profit I made and compared that to lost rent, I was well ahead. So I knew that I made a profit when I compared this from rent money and mortgage money to the profit that I made, even though it was nowhere near the 800,000 potential of the property, I was still better off than had I not taken any action. The other flip side was that I learned how to renovate. I learned how to rip up carpets again, not with me helping my parents do it, but this was the first time. It was the first time that I did everything myself. New curtains, new flooring. I did pay a painter to do the painting because, honestly, I think it would have taken me 4 times as long and probably cost the same amount.
Amir, did you do anything with the kitchen and bathroom in that property, that first one?
I took out anything that looked aged and just unscrewed it and re-screwed in something that looks new. So range hoods above the stovetop usually get yellow with age. So all I did was same plug, didn't change anything of where the power plug was, but just unscrewed it and bought a $200 one and put a new one back in the same spot, same size. So just cosmetically it looked different. The switches on the wall after the painting was finished, big tip there, don't do it before you paint. But after the painting was finished, all I did was I unscrewed the little lids on the plastic covers over the switches and just put new lids on them so they're white and not yellow. It's just those little things that you do without having to physically change any wiring or physically change the actual switch, but just the surrounding cover plates makes a massive difference. It really does.